I call to order the October 16th regular business meeting of Waynesboro City Council. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening, and I ask Mr. Lee to lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For those in attendance this evening, if you wish to speak at one of the scheduled public hearings or during citizen comment period, please sign up on the appropriate sheets in the back of chambers. Item 2 is the adoption of the meeting agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Make the motion.
Okay, guys, you ought to
Yeah.
pick it up a little bit.
We're going to alternate tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. And do I have a second?
Yes, you do.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wood. Any discussion? All in favor of adopting the agenda, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that passes 3-0. Item 3 is matters from mayor. And let's see, is that where we are? Okay. Yesterday, I'd just like to mention that yesterday we held the groundbreaking ceremony for the West End Fire Department. The project should be complete, weather permitting, within 12 to 15 months. The new station will provide a home worthy of the essential work our fire department does every day, and we're really looking forward to the day that the building opens. Item 5 is that was supposed to be item 3. Item 4 is matters from council members. Does anybody have anything? No.
Mim and Mr. Lee went to the merchants meeting last week, and I'm always pleased to report, and I think you'll support me on this, how well our downtown merchants are working together to do promotion and promote downtown Waynesboro. And I think Megan and her group are doing a fantastic job down there.
Okay, thank you.
I did call in to the Historical Commission. They had a meeting this evening at 5:30. So I did call into that. So they're excited and have a lot of different ideas that I'm sure we'll be hearing about
Okay,
in the
sounds
near
good.
future.
Thank you. Item 5 is consideration of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
It's my turn. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes. The consent agenda passes 3-0. Moving on to item 5. We're going to continue on, and 5B is to consider a proclamation to celebrate the centennial of Rosenwald Community Center, and I have asked Mr. Lee to please read that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Williams. Before I read, I just wanted to say that my brother Alan and I attended Rosenwald, grades 4 through 6. This was after it was desegregated. My older brothers, Danny and Larry, attended when it was segregated, and then they moved on over to Waynesboro High School. And so Rosenwald is near and dear to my heart, and so I'm honored to be able to read this proclamation. And with that said, whereas Mr. Julius Rosenwald, president of Sears Roebuck and Company, in collaboration with Mr. Booker T. Washington, shared their philanthropic philosophies, and whereas with a shared interest in educating African-American children during segregation and recognition of the value of quality schoolhouses, Booker T. inspired a school building movement, and Julius funded grants with seed money. The program funded nearly 5,000 schools throughout the South. And whereas Waynesboro's African-American community, valuing improved educational opportunities for its youth so deeply that it raised money to fund a new school. And whereas because Mr. Rosenwald did not want his name used on structures, Waynesboro's new 4-teacher schoolhouse was named Basic School and was built in 1924, including funds from a Rosenwald grant. However, it was always referred to as the Rosenwald School, and the building became a center of community life. And whereas the basic school building was raised in 1959 and replaced by the current structure built in 1959. And whereas the first graduating class was in 1937, and due to desegregation, The final Rosenwald graduating class was in 1965, and by 1967, the remainder of Rosenwald students had moved to Waynesboro High School and K Collins Junior High School. And whereas with the passing of Booker T. Washington in 1915, Julius Rosenwald stayed committed to his promise to help the black communities to progress. And even though Julius Rosenwald passed away in 1932, the Rosenwald Fund continued its purpose for another 16 years. And whereas the Rosenwald School on Port Republic Road became the integrated Rosenwald Elementary School until 1982, when it became Rosenwald Community Center, housing the Waynesboro Parks and Recreation Department and still providing children with activities and programs. And now, therefore, on the behalf of Mayor Lana Williams, along with the City Council of Waynesboro, do hereby deem it an honor and pleasure to extend this centennial proclamation to the Rosenwald School's 100th birthday with sincere congratulations and best wishes for many more happy, productive years. In witness whereof, I do hereby set my hand and cause the seal of Waynesboro to be affixed this 16th day of October, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. And we have somebody here to accept this proclamation, I believe is Mr. Chris Wilmot, and he might like to step forward and say a few words. I'm gonna present it to you first, and then you're more than welcome to say a few. Come on up here, and gentlemen, y'all join me. There's three of us.
Her husband was over at the Roosevelt School family. I'll talk about that.
That'd be great.
All right, cheese. A few of them.
And Chris, if you'd like to say a few words. Yep.
One of the first times I wrote something down, because most of I just go ahead and talk about it, but Lana said I only had 3 minutes. All right. So I'd like to say good evening to the mayor and city council members and those who are in attendance here tonight. I'd like to thank you for your time and for considering this proclamation, recognizing the 100th anniversary of the Roosevelt School. We had a great time that day, and I would like to know that Mr. Roosevald's great-grandson's wife came to speak, and we had a great time with her. It was overwhelming for a lot of people. It was something for those individuals who Mr. Roosevelt and Mr. Booker T that think of something like that, you know, and these people have vision. And those who had been contacted here, they too had vision for what they had put together, and for what I have to say will catch your ear, I hope. I was honored to organize this event on September the 14th to celebrate a school that from its founding in 1924 served generations of students during segregation. These students went on to become educators, doctors, business leaders, military officers, and even government officials, many of whom have contributed immensely to the fabric of the city and beyond. One of our city schools is named after a Roosevelt student. And even among us, this council, there is a proud alumnus, Mr. Kenny Lee. The contributions of Roosevelt students helped shape this, the institutions of corporations that impact our daily lives today. It is important to remember that recognizing this history isn't just about the past. It is about continuing the legacy of the inclusion and the contributions for the future. And as you probably know, that there were a lot of people like who didn't go to the school, as Kenny said, when it was segregated. But a lot of their offspring, like Kenny Brooks, Corey Alexander, they were the descendants of these individuals who went to that school. And so many, many more. Your cousin is running for mayor up in Dayton. And so we are everywhere in this valley and beyond. I didn't realize that even some of the members graduated from UCLA, which was one of my beloved schools that I cheer for all the time. And she's still living at 93 years old. There was a 93-year-old valedictorian that came to the event. So my mother and practically a lot of the African American people that you see in this community, they are the descendants of the Roosevelt family. So just keep those things in mind because it was some things were brought to my attention that they didn't see some of the city officials. And I don't slam you for that. It's just that I know that people's schedules are very tight and busy these days. But when they bring it to my attention, I just wanted to bring it to your attention. And I tried to say some of those things to you. So I hope that moving forward that, we reflect on how we show ourselves in the community when these are special events and things like that. Because when you had that high profile figure here, I didn't tell her that you all weren't here. I just I thought about those things. And I hope that in the future that we all, kind of find a way, even if you're there for 3 minutes and gone. But I do thank you very much for the proclamation and any other contributions that was made for the young man over there in the corner, Jeremy Hopkins, who works over here at the Museum Foundation here, Waynesboro Historical Foundation, however you all name it so many different times. He contributed to a magazine that is 100 years of Roosevelt School information. And if you ever want to pick one up, it's over there at the museum. So I thank you all so very much for everything that you have done for us. And thank you very much, Mike. All right,
Thank you so much. Okay. Item 6 is to receive a departmental update from the Public Works Department. Mr. Hamp.
Sure. I'd like to provide a brief introduction to Mr. McCrae's remarks and presentation. As you indicated, Trafford will be providing a department report for Public Works. And when we say Public Works, that's a pretty powerful expression. Those of us who follow local government, work in local government, are familiar with local government, knows that that's a broad and impactful organization. And sometimes, though, that general and vagueness kind of doesn't raise to attention the important work across various disciplines and across various tasks that that division performs. So I wanted to just hit a few highlights. Public Works' impact goes across 4 distinct enterprise funds, 1 distinct internal service fund, and of course the general fund. And across all of that work, the value or the appropriated financial support exceeds $23.5 million. When we think about Public Works, naturally we think about the provision of potable drinking water, we think about the treatment of wastewater, but they are also the folks who are paving our streets, micro-sealing our streets, repairing potholes, repairing and replacing sidewalks, doing the street marking, street signs and signals. They clean the ditches and maintain the infrastructure for our stormwater system. And when we have exceptional weather events like hurricanes or snow events or floods, they're on the front lines of the cleanup of debris and restoring order to utility delivery in our transportation system. So I think as we, when we think about broad terms, Public Works, I think it's important to recognize and be aware of the individual disciplines and tasks and the important, if beyond important, essential services that the men and women in Public Works provide the community. And so The men and women number nearly 130 employees performing that work. So just a little bit of background as Trafford talks about key accomplishments, key considerations, and challenges or opportunities. That's a little bit of the public administration funding and personnel behind the operation. So with that, welcome Trafford and look forward to his presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Ham. I think you pretty well summed it up, so I can. But good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council, and thank you for the opportunity to present with you with several progress updates on several public works initiatives we have underway. I know that everyone was interested in an update on the pavement management program, and there are several other things we have going on in public works that I also wanted to provide council with some information regarding. So I was just going to touch on it again, maybe a public works overview, although Mr. Hamp hit on that. Hurricane Helene response, some activities we have going on in 3 of our 4 enterprise funds, water, sewer, and refuse, and then also the streets division. So, like Mr. Hamp said, we have some distinct funding sources. Our enterprise funds provide services, collect revenues that support their operations. So that's water, sewer, refuse, stormwater. The streets division is funded through quarterly payments from the Commonwealth of Virginia, and then general fund activities that consist of administrative and regulatory programs that are either supported by general fund tax revenues or transfers from those enterprise funds to the general fund. As far as Hurricane Helene response goes, one of the roles that public works staff play is storm response, including debris cleanup, assistance with public safety, environmental cleanup and response. So this funding source, when we're called upon, is performed regardless of funding source. So it's very likely that a water guy or a sewer guy is driving the snow plow or running the chainsaw in your neighborhood. But so with Helene, we've collected to date about 300 tons of debris. About 225 tons of that we've pulled from city, street, and alley right-of-ways. That was a heavy lift from across the board the first week after the storm, and then it reverted more to streets. And stormwater staff, we've also collected almost 77 tons at the brush disposal site we have at operations on Essex Avenue. Kind of moving on into some of the other things we have going on with the water enterprise. We have a raw water tank under construction right now. If you guys would like to come out and see it, just let us know. This is a $3.5 million project, $2 million of ARPA funding, $1.5 million of enterprise funds. It's incredibly important for us because first it's going to be an emergency raw water supply. So if we have to take one of our sources down, if we have to take our raw water mains out of service, we have water on hand to treat and distribute. It's also going to improve plant operations. Right now we pump straight into our filters, which causes some issues with efficiency. Now we'll be able to run the plant as it was designed, and it's also going to allow us to perform a source water study. We have some pretty good educated guesses of how much water we have on hand, but we've never actually had the raw water on hand to take sources offline and see how quickly they recharge. So that's another important thing we'll be able to do. As I said, the project's underway. We're expecting it to be complete in March of 2025. Another high priority project for the water enterprise is the upgrade of the Shenandoah Village Drive booster station. The Department of Public Health has requirements that all pumps have redundancy, so there should never be a scenario where a pump's running more than 12 hours a day on average without a second pump backing it up. Right now, this station only has 2 pumps, and as you can see from this graphic, in August, we averaged over 25 hours a day of runtime, so we don't have a backup pump at the facility at this time. We intend to issue a contract for engineering on this project within the next few weeks. Hope to advertise for bids in about a year and look at construction being complete in the sometime in fiscal year 2027. Estimated cost for the project is $6.4 million. That includes upgrades to the booster station, upgrades to the suction line feeding the station, and also the discharge line downstream of the pumps. couple of other initiatives within the water enterprise. One of those is water accountability. Public Works staff complete periodic water audits to assess the amount of water loss in our system. Some water loss is going to be expected just from the way water meters round up or down, mainline water breaks, some other factors. But you know, we look for somewhere between 10 to 16% water loss, and we've been averaging over the past several years closer to 30% water loss. As you can kind of see from this trend line here, so we had, I think, 908,000 gallons of water that we produced in 2023, but we lost almost 270 gallons. So our water operations staff is really jumping full-fledged into a leak detection program using some equipment that we bought and looking for leaking service lines, joints and fittings, valves, things of that nature. And this is something we really are proud of and want to get into because it's a place where we can control some of the costs associated with the enterprise. Another thing that's been in the news recently and we're involved with is the lead service line inventory. We're mandated to inventory all service connections and identify the materials used. The goal is to locate and replace any connections with lead pipes or fittings. So of the 9,000 connections in the city, approximately 3,500 are unknown. What this means is that we've extensively researched work records, plans, any other records we have, and we cannot confirm the service line does not contain lead. So when we send out notifications, we're not telling people you have lead in your house. We're just saying we didn't know for sure. We don't have record of it. So those notifications and an online survey for customers will start going out in November through the end of the year. Then our next expected steps after that are some physical surveys of connections at meter boxes where we can visibly tell what materials are there, and then possibly some minimally invasive excavation of service lines to try to verify materials. There's some funding available through the Department of Health that we're tracking both for assessment and replacement opportunities. With the sewer enterprise, one of the things that we've been battling for years is inflow and infiltration. This is just excessive groundwater runoff, entering sewage pipes, cracked and broken pipes, tree roots, unsealed pipes, leaking manholes. And what happens ultimately is that just exceeds the capacity of the collection system, and we have overflows that oftentimes can reach the South River or its tributaries. And that's a regulatory concern for us. We have to report those overflows to DEQ. We had several in September, as you can see from this graphic here. The blue is wastewater plant discharges, which when it was dry trended well under 2 million gallons a day. When we had heavy rain at the end of September along with the tropical systems, as the rain spiked, so did our wastewater flows. So that's something that we're actively working on to try to correct. Right now we have a $2.4 million grant from Department of Environmental Quality to work in Mini System 7, which is the area around Winona School, 10th Street, Charlotte, DuPont Boulevard off of East Main Street. So this is a fairly good-sized project, 3,600 linear feet of sewer main rehab, 2,500 linear feet of sewer laterals, rehab of 31 sewer manholes, and then also reinstatement of 83 sewer services. So this will be a pretty big project for us. We're actually getting ready to issue the contract within the next 6 weeks and should be in construction next spring. Another initiative we have ongoing, the sewer enterprise supports both the collection system and then also the wastewater treatment plant. So we have several pending repairs at the wastewater treatment plant. The most urgent being replacement of a digester cover that failed about 2 years ago. We've had a lot of back and forth both with the vendors, engineers trying to, it wasn't as simple just take the cover off and replace the new one. There was some additional piping and other things that had to be done to do it safely. So we're hoping to have the cover removed by the end of November, and it'll take about 8 to 12 months to actually install the new one correctly. When that process is over, then we'll be moving into design and hopefully construction of some pretty significant mechanical and electrical upgrades that are required with that facility, both for heating and then just electrical. These are really, really harsh environments, so both the digester and then also we have some pump stations where you only have a life expectancy of about 20 years for mechanical or electrical parts. So we're having to be very proactive both about maintenance but also looking at what we need to replace. For the refuse enterprise, we set some pretty lofty goals. We feel like for fiscal year 25, one of the first which we've accomplished was to hire a crew leader or a maintenance supervisor who's, first and foremost, their job is really to kind of keep the day-to-day operations running and allow our superintendent who oversees the refuse fund to do more of those types of things, those higher level tasks. One of the things we're also going to task the maintenance supervisor with is performing a can inventory. So that's going out and verifying, are there cans out there that we're not collecting revenue for, but we're collecting trash, but then also looking at how cans are clustered. Is there a way we can do some route optimization? We've added to our customer base over the last couple of years, but when we've looked at it, it's not really enough to talk about yet adding equipment or manpower. We feel like with some route optimization, we can be a little bit more efficient. And additionally, some recycling initiatives, one of which has already taken place with increasing our capacity to take plastics at the recycling center. The streets division, as Mr. Hamp said, is also another big part of Public Works. The streets division is funded from an annual allocation of approximately $4.5 million from the Commonwealth of Virginia. While that sounds like a lot of money, it has to go to a lot of different places: upkeep and electricity for street lights, paving, ADA improvements ahead of paving, bridge maintenance and inspections, sidewalk repairs. So all those things are considered to be part of the transportation program that we have to spread that money around. Still, one of our largest recurring annual capital expenses is our pavement management program. This program is primarily data-driven, with the goal being to keep our overall street system in good condition while also managing costs for resurfacing. So staff looks at the overall condition index, or OCI, along with other factors such as grouping locations for resurfacing activities to minimize mobilization costs from contractors, any pending utility or ADA compliance work that might mean that we should wait a year to resurface a road. So that's some of the things that go into determining what types of resurfacing should be applied to a road, and then also what schedules are needed for the program. And really the idea here, about 75% of the life of a roadway pavement is in this fair to excellent condition. And as long as if we can keep all of our roads in this condition, then we don't run the risk of once a roads start to fail, they fail fairly quickly and they're much more expensive to replace, as we saw with North Delphine, where we had to come in with the full depth replacement project. So again, the goal is to try to keep all of our transportation network in a good condition. So along those lines, we have several different pavement maintenance activities that we employ. One of the first is crack sealing, and this is actually something that you do with a fairly newly paved road, and the idea is to go ahead and seal the road off immediately, prevent water from getting in and compromising the stone base or hurting the pavement with freeze and thaw. So we actually will have a contractor in later this week to start that ahead of the winter, again, to preserve our roads that are in pretty good condition. Historically, the city's done mill and overlay operations. One of the big advantages of milling and overlaying is you get an excellent road. You get almost a brand new road. But it also means that it's very costly. It's about $11 a square yard. And it's also something that some of the roads can end up deteriorating pretty far before you get to them. that's why we added microsurfacing to our quiver within the past couple of years. Microsurfacing is an industry standard practice that's been used in the U.S. since the early 1980s. And microsurfacing, again, that idea of keeping all of the transportation network in a good to fair condition. So we're hitting it when the road hasn't deteriorated as much. It's just a thin overlay. That has some safety benefits as far as increased skid resistance. You can see it's very dark. You get good contrast with pavement markings. But it's also a way to keep the roads in good condition cost effectively. At $3.50 a square yard, it's about a third of the cost of milling and paving operations. So just a couple other quick graphics to show how the microsurfacing and milling and paving compare. So we did about 600,000 square feet of milling and overlay and about 2 million square feet of microsurfacing this past year. We spent about 691,000 on milling and overlaying and about 800,000 on microsurfacing. So with all of that, milling and paving was 23% of the area that we treated, but it was 46% of the cost. So our goal is to try to keep our entire transportation network up into good condition, and so that's why we feel like it's got a lot of promise. Another thing I wanted to point out, which is something that my street staff are really excited about, and we really appreciate council's support with locally responsible paving this past year. So locally responsible paving are smaller roads that don't meet the qualifications for VDOT funding. This past year, we paved 262,000 square feet of local roads at a cost of $269,000. And we're looking forward to continuing that program moving forward. So just finally, I wanted to close with the microsurfacing and some lessons learned. And our staff realizes that this can be improved. Our department strives to provide exceptional services to the community. And so given that, we're looking at some things we can do to make this product better moving forward. One of the things we're going to do is look at our contract documents, our specifications, tightening those up as far as requirements for notifications to citizens, traffic control. There's also some technical aspects. Maybe people didn't see how they seal or how they make sure that manhole lids, valve box covers aren't sealed, some things like that. So we're working on tightening up our technical specifications, and then also bringing in an outside inspector while the work is actively going on, just to increase oversight and make sure that we're getting a good product to take care of our road system. So again, thank you all for the opportunity to present you with these initiatives this evening, and any questions you all may have.
You have any questions?
I just want to make a statement about, and I think I can comfortably speak for everybody. We just want to thank the entire staff through the last hurricane, all the issues that we had. I think our city works did a fantastic job and can't be commended enough for their fast, speedy, and expertise. So thank all of them for us.
I most certainly will.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Did you have anything?
No. Okay. Look forward to the tour, Jack.
Okay. Item 7 is to hold a public hearing and consider introducing an ordinance closing and vacating approximately 1,000 square feet of unimproved alley located between Harding Avenue and Allison Avenue, lots 1 and 2 of Block G. Lindbergh Heights. And I'd like to call on our Director of Community Development, Ms. Tate.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. This evening, we are scheduled to hold a public hearing and consider introducing an ordinance for an application to close and vacate a portion of an unimproved alley. So I wanted to speak briefly on the process, since these aren't something that we do all of the time. So state code lays out some specifics for the process, and then more uniquely, the Waynesboro City Charter identifies how these requests are handled. So the City Council did appoint 3 viewers to go out and look at the the request and on the ground to see if there were any specific concerns. So I'll review that and then also some of the other pictures and locations for you all to be aware of. So the property is 1501 Harding Avenue, and you can see kind of the areas Harding Avenue, Georgia Avenue, and Allison Avenue. So this parcel is owned by a separate property owner, currently is undeveloped. And then this is that 1,000 square feet of area that this property owner would like to purchase from the city. The property owner has been maintaining it and mowing the area and would like to essentially kind of append that area onto their lot. And so that's where the request to vacate the right-of-way comes in. This is a view if you're at Georgia Avenue looking up. You can see kind of the grade of this alley, and you can see that there has been a guardrail placed there that kind of creates a dead-end situation. And so this area here would be the proposed area to vacate. So as mentioned, the city charter section 2.6, city viewers were appointed and did provide a report, and they indicated that abandoning and vacating the right-of-way would inconvenience the general public by removing the possibility of using the alley for passage of vehicles, the placement of vehicles, underground utilities, snow removal, and staging of fire equipment. The viewers also indicated that the closure could negatively affect the adjoining landowner or the future landowner if they would like to build a house on the lot, and they noted that access would be limited to where there is specific frontage. Staff, kind of also evaluated the situation and does not see any direct impact on the city transportation network. There are no immediate plans from Public Works to extend the alley or improve the alley. However, Public Works staff did note that the closure, would create a permanent dead-end situation, which is something that they're not, always in favor of. Staff also wants to point out that there are no public utilities located within the alley, so that is not of concern. And then kind of in addition, the way the process continues is if approved, that the applicant would then purchase the property from the city. And so the city assessor has determined that 1,000 square feet would be worth $3,250. So if approved, the land would be purchased by the applicant. So that's all I have for you this evening, unless you have any questions. And then it is a public hearing, and I believe the applicant is here to speak.
Are there any questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Leslie. I hereby open the public hearing. Has anybody signed up to speak?
Yes, ma'am. So Mr. David McAllister, pardon me, David McAllister.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm Dave McAllister. I own the residence at 1501 Harding Avenue, and I'm trying to purchase the alley. And the reason I like to purchase the alley, I like to extend my land. I want to build a garage, so that's going to be more revenue for the city. And I've been maintaining it for 8 years. I just think, this is something I just like to have. And that's the reason I would like to have it. All right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
So,
Anybody else?
Mr. Earl Lunsford.
Okay.
Mayor, Councilman, I live down below David McAllister's house. I've been living here since October '79. All those houses up here were nothing but vacant lots when I moved in. And of course, they built houses there and everything. And they closed off half the alley there at one time because they thought about maybe running a asphalt down to Georgia Avenue, but they can't do that because that would run water onto my property. So that's why they put the guardrail up. And of course, David's been mowing it for over 8 years now, and I think it'd be a big improvement if they would give it to him, because like I say, it's he wants to build on it, which would be more revenue for y'all and everything. And he's been a good neighbor ever since he's moved in. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your time. Anybody else?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I hereby close the public hearing. Is there a motion to introduce the ordinance closing and vacating the specified alley?
I make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any discussion? This item will receive final consideration at the October 25th regular business meeting. Item 8 is to hold a public hearing and consider introducing an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2025 budget in the amount of $8,937,366. I'd like to call on Mr. Cameron McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, members of council. This item is intended to introduce an amendment to the fiscal year 2025 budget in the amount of $8,937,366. State code requires that any amendment to a locality's budget which exceeds 1% of the currently adopted budget may only be adopted following an advertised public hearing. The city advertised the public hearing and the details of this amendment in the News Virginian on October 8th, 2024, and the public hearing can be held this evening. The main component of this amendment is the encumbrance roll forward from the prior year, which Mr. McCray actually did a really good job setting up. It has the majority of the projects on it. It's things like the $2.5 million that was set aside and allocated for the digester repair. I noted 2.1 of remaining work on the raw water tank. It should actually, his 3.5 is correct. The 2.1 was just the ARPA portion. And then about 800,000, I had 377. It was part of the contract of the microsurface paving. So all those numbers are in your briefing and are correct in the ordinance. And then there are a number of other small purchases across in 2024 across the general fund, water fund, refuse fund, sewer fund, and stormwater fund that just weren't able to be completed by the end of the fiscal year. Just a reminder on the digester cover, we have the funds in fund balance to cover that purchase in the sewer fund. We have the ability and are getting ready to issue the contract on that purchase with a planned start date in November. In November, the insurance adjuster should be on site to give us an opinion on whether or not they'll be able to cover it through insurance. And then if insurance doesn't cover it, council will have the choice to move forward just by using that position on that project, or we have a reimbursement resolution outstanding and an application in that's been returned to the Virginia Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund, or if we would choose so, we could take that out on that project as well. So there's a number of different avenues open, but there are funds set aside to pay for that project in its entirety. Then there's another small component of the ordinance that's miscellaneous other grants and donations and recoveries, $134,844. It's mainly comprised of donation to the library. We found out during the middle of last year that someone had left us some money in an estate. It took a little bit of time to get the money through the estate process. So they sent us the check towards the end of last year. It'll be sitting in fund balance at the end of 2024 in the act for the library director, Ms. Ferson, has a plan to spend those funds. And so she's asking that we appropriate those, and then insurance proceeds of $25,000. That's mainly for a traffic pole that was struck, and then economic development grants, one of $16,000 for Waynesboro art, and then about $4,000 of VTC funding. So if council has any questions on any of that, I'd be happy to answer it now. If not, you're welcome to open the public hearing and introduce the ordinance.
Are there any questions for Mr. McCormick? Nope. I hereby open the public hearing.
No one has signed up to speak.
I hereby close the public hearing. Okay, is there a motion to introduce the ordinance amending the fiscal year 2025 budget?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Any discussion? Okay. This ordinance will receive final consideration at the October 25th meeting. Item 9 is to consider introducing an ordinance amending City Code Section 78-63, amount of exemptions for the elderly and disabled, and I will call on Mr. Hamp.
Yes, ma'am. Council is likely aware that the city has a codified program of providing tax relief for elderly and disabled citizens. To qualify as elderly, the individual must be at least 65 years of age on January 1st of the tax year. Citizens certified as permanently and totally disabled on January 1st of the tax year are eligible to apply for relief regardless of age. Tax relief program provides a partial exemption and is provided according to qualifying criteria of annual income, and that's a gross income calculation, and net financial worth. And that net financial worth calculation does not include the value of the home. The amount of relief is then prorated according to a combined metric of annual income and net worth, and our Commissioner of Revenue administers the program. Our parameters or the metrics was last updated in 2020. Staff is recommending at this time that the council consider an update for the upcoming tax year, 2025. And what we would propose to do is increase the net combined financial worth limit by 12,500, and then the gross combined income limit by $8,000. Correct? Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, it's not possible for staff, either the commissioner or the municipal staff, to predict with precision how these changes will impact the roles specifically, but I think from our experience and familiarity with the program, we know that by increasing the limits, we will increase the number of eligible recipients. The program peaked in 2011 in terms of recipients at 185. In 2011, 185 individuals received relief, and that's the most individuals to receive relief in the recent history of the program. And the largest relief disbursement, and this is in aggregate across all recipients, was about $129,000, and that occurred in 2021. So in your packet is a metrics, and I want to provide a substitute one with some last-minute consultation with the commissioner. Can you send that up, please? Ms. Von Schilling suggested that we increase the maximum gross combined income to $40,000. And originally, the metrics that you have in the ordinance tonight reflects 37. But again, the commissioner said probably better to go to 40. And so this is an exercise that we undertake periodically, recognizing primarily inflationary impacts on household and individual incomes. And I think to emphasize that in a time when housing is so expensive, measures that the local government can take to promote the ability for residents to remain in their homes probably are helpful in that regard. And so the ordinance is presented for your consideration. Ms. Von Schilling is here if you have questions about the program that I'm not able to answer.
Did you wish to speak? Okay, are there any questions from council? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, is there a motion to introduce the ordinance?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, and do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any discussion? Okay. This ordinance will receive final consideration at the October 25th meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, item 10 is to consider appointing an individual to the Economic Development Authority Board. Is there a motion to appoint Jacqueline Kurtz to the EDA for a 4-year term?
I'll make that motion.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that appointment passes 3-0. Item 11 is to consider reappointing a member to the Regional Youth Commission. Is there a motion to reappoint Jeff Fife to the Regional Youth Commission for a 3-year term ending August 31st, 2027?
I make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that appointment passes 3-0. Item 12 is to consider reappointing a member to the Board of Building Code of Appeals. Is there a motion to reappoint Jillian Wells to the Board of Building Code of Appeals for a 5-year term ending August 31st, 2029?
Make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that appointment passes 3-0. Item 13 is to consider reappointing a member to the Library Board of Trustees. Is there a motion to reappoint Eric Anderson to the Library Board of Trustees for a 4-year term ending August 31st, 2028?
I make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that passes 3-0. Item 14 is to consider appointing a member to the Parks and Recreation Commission. And is there a motion to reappoint Abby Bryant to the Parks and Recreation Commission for a 4-year term ending August 31st, 2028?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Wood, and do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes 3-0. Item 15 is to consider reappointing an individual to the Historic Commission. Is there a motion to reappoint Joel Thornton to the Historic Commission for a 4-year term ending August 31st, 2028?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that commission, it passes 3-0. Item 16 is to consider appointing a candidate to the Historical Commission. Is there a motion? And I'm going to get you guys to correctly pronounce his name for me. Is it
Philippe.
Philippe? Okay, Philippe Bone to the Historic Commission for a 4-year term ending August 31st, 2028.
I make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that passes 3-0. Moving on. I'm sorry, where are we? Whew. Okay.
17.
Item 17 is communication, correspondence, and calendar. Mr. Ham.
So I don't have anything this evening.
Okay, thank you. That makes, that moves on to item 18, which is citizen comment period. Do we have anyone sign up to speak?
Yes, ma'am, we do. Ms. Jeannie McCutcheon?
Okay, just remind all speakers that you'll have 4 minutes to address council. We do have a light system up here, and when it turns yellow, that means you have about 30 seconds remaining to speak. And if you please state your name and address for the record. I think we all know who you are.
City, Ms. Mayor, Mrs. Mayor, City Council staff, City Manager and your staff, and others. I'm here to bring to you a concern that we have for the East Main Street corridor. As we go to the foot of the hill of the mountain, of Afton Mountain, I live at 1922 East Main Street. Of course, I am Jeannie McCutcheon. I didn't say that. My concern is lately we have a lot of traffic. We have business in the city, and I'm glad to see that that is happening. With that, the traffic has picked up. Now, one of the concerns for me near my home, there is a pull-off. And many people sometimes pull off to either read their texts or their messages or make a call. That's fine. But lately I've been noticing that there have been a lot of tractor trailers, not the little small ups or FedEx or those. I mean long tractor trailer trucks pulling off when they come down the mountain and they're making a U-turn. That is not a U-turn area. I have sent pictures to Miss Lana and to Mr. Lee. And why Mr. Lee? He's in C because my funeral home is in C. So I take him also as my councilman, and you, Miss Lana. I have sent pictures to him. Then recently, I usually don't sit at the window, but my husband does, and he's not well. And I want to say right quickly, thank you all for your kindness, cards and calls for the loss of my 2 children within the last 2 months. Looking out the window, I constantly saw all these cars coming down, turning around, making U-turns there. And I didn't pay too much attention until I saw 3 cars. I guess they were traveling together. And they were doing the same thing. They would come down off the mountain, pull over there, and make a U-turn and go back up the mountain. Either they were having something at the top of the mountain that they needed to get to, and it was easier from the right side, or they were going to the tunnel, which is something that we use for tourists, and I love tourists. But when they're coming down the mountain, they would have to cross a double line to go across and hold up traffic to get into the entrance of the tunnel. So when they come down the mountain, when they make this U-turn down here in front of the area, which also happens to be the entrance into Dr. Woodworth Animal Hospital, and also to a couple of other driveways that are all adjacent there together. And they make that U-turn and go back up the mountain. Well, Sunday when I went to pick up my meal, I saw a car from where I'm up high sitting down there with flashes on. And usually when you have flashes, there's some trouble in your car, or you may and want to check something. I was going out to pick up my food, and when I come down lower to get to the end of my drive, I can't see a car sitting there until I'm pulling out. This car was flashing, so I said, oh, they're not making a U-turn, because normally they would just head on the left turn. And I sat there, and they put the hand out like this, so I thought they were saying, go on. And as I started to shoot out to go into town, the car whirled around. I could have creamed them. I could have had, side them. I'm telling you, there is an issue there. We have brought this to your attention before. They used to have what they call a turnoff. In other words, when you came there, you could pull over where cars could easily go around you. What you have to do, and many of the people coming into Waynesboro don't know this, there's a sign that will tell you fog on the mountain, or there is a crash on 64. Just before we get there, all of us know to make sure we have our blinker on to make the left-hand turn, whether we're going to Woodworth, the other driveways, or what.
Thank you, Ms. McCutcheon.
Because there is a knoll, and you can't see us sitting at the bottom.
Okay,
I
thank
just
you,
want to avoid an accident. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. David Getz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is David Getz, better known as Major Dave. I live at 11 South Oak Lane here in Waynesboro. And that is part of the road that is being affected by the extension of the South Oak Lane between the new Northrop Grumman facility, across Lyndhurst, down North Oak Lane, and then continuing on to Delphine. We've been dealing with those contractors for 6 to 8 months now, and they've done a great job of cutting down the trees, leveling out the ground, getting ready to put that road through. And I actually came tonight because I wanted to just say a thank you to Branch Civil Construction. That is the name I see on the side of the trucks. They tore up a good section of our driveway. They have brought in gravel. Sometimes we got it distributed before they did. No, we didn't steal their gravel. We just repositioned it to fill in where their heavy tracked equipment has cut ruts in our driveway. Their cooperation has been stellar. They have had big rigs there, tri-axle dump trucks being loaded with excavators at most any time of day. And if they were blocking the road when we needed to leave, they would stop what they were doing and move their equipment out of the way so we could proceed on in or out. I know this is mostly VDOT, I believe, handling this project and coming through them, but I just want to let you know that that contractor is doing their absolute best to minimize the disruption to our daily lives for those of us who live on that, in that area. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Diana Hagenlocker.
Madam Mayor and Council, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak to you. I am coming here in support of Mrs. McCutcheon and Woodworth Animal Hospital, and I kind of wanted to start off with letting you guys know the impact that the paving of 2001 East Main Street leading up to the animal hospital has made such a huge difference for all of us, all of our clients. We get all kinds of positive comments, and so that is greatly appreciated. I think that with all of the development in the city, from Virginia Metal Crafters to the tunnel, everything is just so exciting, and we're looking forward to everything that's going on. But we do ask for you to please take into consideration, as you're doing work between those two places and trying to, boost the development and do more things, to keep in consideration the safety of the current residents, of the clients that are coming out of Woodworth Animal Hospital. A lot of times people come flying off of the top of the mountain, and it's very difficult for people to pull out there. It is extremely dangerous, and I feel like personally, as things continue, we're gonna see a lot more traffic, which we all want, but in hindsight, or in looking at things, you say, be careful what you wish for. You do kind of have to head that off a little bit and kind of take into consideration the growth and the road and the mountain and just everything that's going to be happening. And we just ask for your consideration when you do that, to help keep everybody safe. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you, and I hope that you guys will take these thoughts into consideration.
Thank you.
Okay?
And if you don't mind, could you just give the, your address for our
Yeah.
records?
It's 2001 East Main Street. It's the Woodworth Animal Hospital.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Anybody else?
That's it.
Okay. Item 19 is a closed session. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Madam Mayor, I move this meeting be recessed and that the City Council of Waynesboro immediately reconvene in a closed meeting as authorized by Virginia Code 2.2-3711A, 3 and 5, to discuss or consider the acquisition of real property for a regional industrial park and/or a prospective business or industry, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the city's bargaining position or negotiating strategy, and where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? This requires a roll call vote. Ms. Bortle? Aye.
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 We're in closed session. Ready?
Successfully
I'm ready to
rated.
get out of here.
Very successfully.
Correctly rated.
Okay. Is there a motion that council return to open session and certify the closed session?
Madam Mayor, I move to adopt the following resolution. Whereas the City Council of Waynesboro has convened in a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this City Council that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of Waynesboro hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and two, only such business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the City Council of Waynesboro.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? This requires a roll call vote. Ms. Bortle? Aye.
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 We are back in session. That brings us to item 20. And who will do the honors for
I would
Mr.?
like to make a motion to adjourn.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.